welcome to the Beats of Learning. Today we're going to talk about intercultural storytelling and how to create workshops, compelling workshops that engage your students in an intercultural setting. And we are...
Hi, I am Stephan. I am a recent graduate in the Masters in Film and Television Production at the Film University in Babelsberg. I've been working in the film industry for quite a few years now and have worked with Stockleben, Professor Björn Stockleben, in the WeLearn project for 2 years or so. And in this time we've made a series of different workshops trying to connect storytelling with interculturality.
And I'm Björn Stockleben, Professor of Emerging Media Production, and I'm also part of the same project as Stephan is. So within the scope of the WeLearn project, we try different forms of applying storytelling for fostering or encouraging intercultural encounters and discussions. Stephan, you created a compact workshop that takes an afternoon to get people engaged in intercultural storytelling. So how does that work?
Yeah, so Samantha and I work together. Samantha Iwowo, professor for transnational cinema at the University of Bournemouth, and myself. We created this format that runs during a week from Monday to Friday and connects students from 2 universities. In this case, the University of Bournemouth and our university, the Film University. And ideally you would have equal amounts of students on both sides, but in our case we had a lot more students in the Bournemouth side and then at the Film University, so we had to come up with a few creative solutions. But the core concept is the idea to connect students and have them make a transnational work of film. It doesn't have to be a groundbreaking film. It just has to connect them in some way. The process is much more important than the result. So it is a call and response project in the sense that one side, there has to be an impulse, a call, in this case a letter, and then there has to be the responses from the other students. For the letter part, we connected equal amounts of students from the University of Bournemouth and from the Film University. And for the other parts, it was more disbalanced because of, the unequal amount of students from both partners, and also the practical reality of shooting a film in a location. You need more people there than on the other side of the channel. So the groups, the letter group, which was equal, created the letter, sent the letter to the other groups. The other groups created films that are an artistic response to this letter. And by the end we had a film from the letter and also 3 different short films that reacted to the letter. There's very little time for the projects. Most of the groups started shooting on Tuesday and delivered on Thursday. And we supported them throughout using Slack, the platform Slack. So to send deadlines, hey, you need to send out the scripts tonight, or you have to send out the finished products tonight, etc. And also clearing any questions that they might have. And yeah, by the end, we got a pretty good response. Oh, it should be said also at the beginning, we started the workshop with a lecture from Samantha, focusing on transnational cinema, what it means, what are examples of it, and what are the potential implications of transnational cinema for the works. So that gave the groups a theoretical impulse to create this letter, which then gave the impulse to create the 3 short films. And yeah, that is the short version of it.
and the basis for the story. So you didn't have much time in that week, so the idea was to give a basic impulse to create something that get the story started. So that's where this letter came from. And you decided that this letter, so the start of the story, so to say, was to be written by or should be written by a mixed group of students from Bournemouth and Film University. This input they gave. Did you have the feeling that it had a large impact on the films in terms of notions of internationality, transnational cinema, and how did they? Well, how does the notion of interculturality and transnational cinema relate to that briefing or this letter?
So the group of students that interacted the most was the group that worked together on the letter. They gave really good feedback about meeting each other, getting to know each other, getting to know the interests of each other, etc. And the letter played an even bigger role than I actually expected. I initially thought they would write the letter and send it to the groups, and the groups would make their own stories. But in the end, every film that was recreated as a response to the letter incorporated the actual letter in the film itself. So the letter was an audio letter, and the audio of this letter was played on every film afterwards. And the letter is the whole idea behind the letter was to have a sequence of statements that can be of any kind, of political kind, of just ordinary daily life kind. For example, one of them was in Brazilian Portuguese, which is my mother tongue, and it says, I see passion fruit juice being sold in the supermarket, and it's called exotic, but to me it's not exotic. That was one statement. And due to the simple fact that the letter was made up of, I don't know, 8 to 10 different languages, nobody would be in a position to understand it completely. And that was the idea behind it. So the letter itself spoke of displacement and language barriers, which are core conceits of transnational cinema. And the fact that it was played on every film ensured that every film incorporated this idea of interculturality and transnationalism.
That sounds compelling. So, and how then? So, it sounds like the letter was really a true collaboration, while the teams were weighing either leaning towards one side. So the majority of the team members were in Bournemouth, but there were some team members from Germany and vice versa. So how did they integrate these people who were not on site in the first place? So how did they interact?
So yeah, that was the biggest difficulty, integrating students that are not on site with groups that are filming, for example. This is why the letter group worked the best, since the letter can be easily made online via a Zoom call or something else. That worked perfectly, but actually filming a project simply leads to doing something together in some place. And given also the time constraints, which are very, very big, creating a film within 3 days is a very quick process. Groups usually shot the films by themselves. Maybe they had a short discussion during the writing process, and I think one group gave feedback to the first editing sketch, but those groups that actually shot the films were much more self-contained units in the university they are in, but influenced by this transnational letter and the whole theoretical input, etc. But they did not interface as much as we had initially hoped. Yeah.
How important was the theoretical lecture at the beginning? So I know that the lecturers did give an input, a lecture on transnational cinema in the beginning. So what influence did that have, and which types of notions did they pick up, and which maybe not?
Yeah, Samantha's lecture in the beginning was extremely relevant, I think. Yeah, just the fact of transnational cinema being called transnational cinema, it kind of gives you an idea of what it means. But actually understanding what are concepts around it, usual characteristics of transnational films, having this at hand in a short input in the beginning really helps activate the creative muscles, as one could say, from the students. And it activated the right muscles, I should say. It led them to a transnational form of thinking, in opposition to their usual form of filmmaking that they would do in other projects.
And at the end, when you were watching the films together, did that spark any discussion of any kind?
So the discussion in the end was mostly focused on the meta level. So how did the teams work together? How did they come up with their ideas? Did they have discussions? Were there difficulties? Was it easy? How did they get to know each other? Do they feel like they got new insights to other cultures, or in how to approach other students from other cultures? And the discussion was less about the transnational cinema itself. We asked questions related to that in the discussion, but they were answered quickly, and the students were much more interested in the social aspect of the workshop. Yeah.
Yeah, and so what I'm wondering is, now these students were film students, so they are trained in storytelling. In how far would you think this approach can also be applied, or how would it have to be altered to be suitable for broader audiences and student groups that are not filmmakers?
I mean, one could say everybody is a storyteller in some way. Everybody comes home and tells their partner or their family about their day, and that is also a form of storytelling. So I think it's not like you need to be a specialist at storytelling to do this, especially considering the quality of the films is not the goal. The goal is to experience the process of storytelling together with people from other cultures. And so I don't think storytelling is a problem. I think maybe filmmaking might be a problem, since filmmaking has a lot of technical aspects. Although nowadays a lot of young people do TikToks and shoot and edit videos on their phones, so this might not even be an issue anymore. But if it is, I would try to reimagine the workshop to be focused on theater, or maybe written forms of storytelling, which I would say then almost everybody will have participated in a theater play in their school. They will know it would not be the first time they do something like that. But yeah, since the quality is not the goal, I think it could be applied to students from other universities that are not filmmakers or storytellers. Might be particularly easy to do it with students from the humanities. Students from natural sciences might be a little bit more difficult, but it would be interesting to try anyway.
Of course, yeah. I think, well, in one or the other way, we all can tell stories, and we can, you could perhaps, well, you could write a story. You could also, well, make a photo story, so to leave out the technical details. So I guess there are a lot of options, and you would have to try. And I guess what you also pointed out, that it was much about the process of doing something particular together. So it's not so much about the result, but more about the process that gets them engaged with certain topics. It sounds like a very good approach, and I hope we can repeat it soon. Yeah, thanks, Stephan.
Okay, so you also did a workshop recently, right? Focused on incoming students, so first semester students. How did that go?
Yeah, so this time, well, we have an introduction project at Film University at the beginning of the study program. And traditionally, it's just that they get assigned to randomized groups, and then they are told to make a film. And we thought, well, there could be something more to that. Let's try whether we can get more people to get involved and get people to know more people during this time. So we thought, first, let's give an input that opens their minds to us, or sets a focus on diversity, respect, and interculturality. That we did by inviting a guest speaker to give a keynote. Then we chose not to make a linear movie, but a so-called non-linear movie. So we gave an introduction into non-linear filmmaking, which is less complicated than it might sound. And we also had a lecture on respect and teamwork. And with this input, we asked the students in the afternoon of the first day in groups, so what are the topics you want to talk about? What is on your mind? What is important to you right now? And from this, each group nominated 8 keywords to be used for the production of the interactive movies. And we scaled them down to, well, 8 keywords at all. So we together, with the whole group, with the plenary, we selected the 8 best or most important terms out of a selection of I think it was 32. So then we had 8 terms and a lot of students, so over 100 students. And what we did then was, for each day, we split up the students into about 8 groups, and each group would take one term, so one keyword. So there would be one keyword was egg, another was a new beginning, and there were a lot of quirky German terms that I cannot really translate here, but the idea was that in 3 consecutive days we would have 8 teams working on at least one film with focusing on this keyword. So at the end of the day, we actually split up the groups further. So at the end of the day, I guess we had 24 films, about 8 keywords, which were 1 minute long each. So it's a 1 minute film shot in 1 week, in 1 day. And we repeated that the next 2 days. And so people were constantly meeting new people and ideating and creating a film with a different bunch of people, learning to know a large part of their future fellow students. And then we took these 72 videos that we had at the end, and we put them into a nonlinear video authoring machine where we essentially linked those videos according to the keywords they represented. And what came from that is a nonlinear structure where you get, meaningful, but in a way random combinations between different films. So each time you watch this nonlinear film, you get different contrasts, and your brain is stimulated in different ways. You get new associations, and we also had a screening of this nonlinear film at the end of the week as well, the final event. And that was both quite entertaining and quite insightful, and it gave a nice picture about the mental state and world, so where the students are at right now. So they came together, they brought something. You see what they brought with them. They see what they want to work on. You get an idea of how they want to work together. That was an interesting experience that we will certainly repeat.
So the film university is structured around different degrees, right? So the different specialties of filmmaking, directing, camera, editing, etc. How did you feel like that influenced the project?
Actually, we try to totally disregard this. So everybody should take an equal part in the creation of the film. And this happened people who are aspiring directing students and other people who would study like media studies were creating this side by side, and without any notable dominance of certain people or certain study programs. And I think that is important, that stories shouldn't always be told by the people who are known to tell good stories, because it's about exchange, and we do not want the most entertaining story, but we want to create stories that that combine the ideas, the feelings, and the needs of all participating people, because we want stories to be something we want them to discuss and talk through stories, and not create compelling stories to be sold to Netflix or whatever. So that's the main point of those workshops. It's about ourselves, about the process, about the students who participate.
But I assume the students in different degrees must have somewhat different work cultures between them. Directors being more typical team leaders as opposed to editors, for example. Do you think that played a role, even though they were advised to not think about the degrees they are actually studying in?
We also looked at work cultures actually in one of the accompanying lectures during that week. And apart from the fact that about 25% of students at film universities are from abroad, so there is an inherent interculturality to this group, although it's dominantly German students, but there is a larger portion of a larger share of students from abroad. this mixes additionally with different work cultures and expectations of how we want or could work together. And to me, it's a gradual thing, or it depends highly on the context, whether your what is dominant, your national culture, your work culture, the culture of the social context you were brought up in, the culture of the company you were seeking yourself. So, and easy examples are some people have worked before in the public television, and others have been jobbing in startups or so, and they know a totally different work culture. And so culture is not only about national culture, but national culture is an important factor, but it has to be weighed in with a lot of other influencers or influencing factors that determine the personal understanding of culture and how it should be.
Mm-hmm. So, and what were the difficulties?
I underestimated was so if you're working creatively, to get an ideation process started, you have to give some input. But the question is, how much and which kind of? How strong should this input be? So we introduced an umbrella theme of a new beginning, and then they started gathering their keywords. And afterwards, I found that there were some highly interesting topics and notions that we would have liked to talk about with them, or that I would have liked to see in the movies. But they said, no, we didn't choose that because it didn't match the umbrella topic. So in this case, I would say our students were quite capable to come up with ideas themselves, and they didn't need much guidance to get the ideation process started. And to keeping it more open, or saying, well, or emphasizing that a new beginning umbrella topic is just to get things started, and that they should go wherever it leads them. It would have worked probably better with them, and they would also have been better able to embrace the topics that were introduced in the keynote, like the diversity topic that they didn't pick up so much, because they thought, well, now it shall be about new beginning. I think it highly depends on the group you're dealing with, how much input you're giving there. But next time we would probably tweak that.
Mm-hmm. When do you think it will happen next time?
Well, next winter term, when the new students come. And maybe it's also a concept that can be applied in other settings, because it really has the advantage of mixing groups fast, so that you get to know a lot of people in a quite short time. And at the same time, you have a very intense experience with this group, because making a film together with a deadline in a couple of hours is quite challenging, but can also be very satisfying. So we found that the students very much liked it, and we will certainly do it again.
And how do you think this applies to universities that don't shoot films?
Well, I think they could still tell stories. The question is what you expect from these stories. As I said, these stories are transactional items. So they don't have a purpose per se. It's not about the story, it's about the conversation about the story, and the story starting a conversation. And I think that the shorter the videos are, the easier it is to value short and special ideas. So there might just be one special idea or one special shot or picture in the video, and people would be able to appreciate it. So I think it's even possible with video. Just don't expect you get something that others would understand. But for the group who is involved in the process, they will understand and appreciate each other's videos, no matter what quality they have in the end.
All right, sounds great. Thank you very much. Why don't you play us out?
Okay, yeah, that was a nice insight into your concepts, and I hope I was able to bring across my approaches too. And I guess we'll keep on working on this and maybe come up with some totally new stuff, and then see you in the next episode, hopefully.
Listen to the beats of learning.